Robbins said in this CD, if you cannot change anyone else, so if you're unhappy in your current situation and you cannot change yourself to become happy, it will never change because you cannot change that other person.
Welcome to episode number 22 of the 100 Successful Women, a Conversation to Inspire series. If you have been following this series for a while, maybe let me know in the comment which of this episode is your favorite by far. So if you are first time joining me in this video and watching this video and first time on our channel, I wanted to give you a big welcome. And I would like to invite you to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss our next episode coming up. So this 100 Successful Women series is a conversation I have with these women who have successfully overcome their hurdles in life and got out of their comfort zone. They have grown into a better version of themselves. My mission to share this conversation is to inspire more women out there to see the possibilities in themselves and helping them to unleash their inner lioness too. In today's video, I am grateful to have Lorene Roberts from Live Lights Inspire joining us to share her stories on how she stood up again after losing her marriage at the age of 50 years old. She shared with us her stories on how she discovered her strength when she was traveling on her own for 12 months overseas. She also shared her experiences in relation to the abuse that she experienced in her previous marriage, which I think it is very important for many women to be aware of. I wanted to acknowledge her for her courage to voice out and her mission now to help more women out there. So without further ado, let's dive into our conversation with Lorene coming up next. Good morning, Lorene. How are you today on a Monday morning?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very good, thank you.
That's the way. I'm so glad that you are here with us this morning, Lorene. And yeah, I know that we haven't really know each other that long. And once again, I wanted to thank my brother Anthony for referring you to me. He has been awesome.
I didn't know that was your brother.
No, he wasn't my brother because of course he's not my brother, but we are brother is in because he has been, I think he's definitely younger than me, so he's my younger brother. Even though we never meet each other in person,
Okay, he can be my cousin then.
Yeah, he has been awesome. And then ever since my connection with him, he has connected a few wonderful women to this podcast for me.
Yeah. He's an amazing young man.
Yes,
so if anyone needs any website work done, he really is the person to go to. He's just amazing. And he has great connections, he has great rapport, and he listens to people, which is so important in business and in life. It's a life skill, isn't it? Listening to people.
That's right. Yeah, listening skills is much needed in like the busy world nowadays because sometimes people just I don't think that's half that time, and not many people are willing to do that nowadays.
Yes, and it's about really listening to the core and understanding who people are.
Yeah,
and Anthony does that. He really does listen to who you are when you speak. So it's more than just listening to the words you say, because often they can be really superficial. It's actually listening to who you are.
Yeah, that's great. And I can't wait to see him. He said he's coming to Sydney soon. Yeah, I'll definitely catch up with him.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you again, Lorene, for your time this morning. And can you please let our listeners out there to briefly know a little bit about who is Lorene?
Lorene is a work in progress, but also it's a really interesting question. I haven't thought about it in that way. Who am I? Look, as a soul, I am a very honest, open, curious person. I love
Yes.
to know how things work.
Mm.
And in my life, I've had to work out why things were the way they were and how I change things now. So who I am as a person probably has evolved very much from a very insecure person as a young child, being very insecure, through to being a wife and a mother and a family homemaker, very strong homemaker who have a lot of my principles is around being a mother and being good.
Mm-hmm.
To have it all shattered, to have to go and find me at the age of 50. You know, the marriage dissolved, the house had to be broken up. My role went, and I was totally lost. And it took me a long time to find who I was. I didn't even know what I liked. Whereas now I know what my passion is, you know. I didn't understand even that I had passions back then. And it's quite clear that I did now, but back then I didn't. You know, I had no clue who I was.
Wow.
So now I'd like to say I'm confident. Oh, look, I'm certainly confident in some areas, and other areas, you know, I'm still a work in progress, but each of us is. Each of it is. And yeah, I'd like to say I'm a really confident person. I certainly step outside the box and the square a lot. So I take risks in life. I'm going to stand on a stage and talk to 200 people in a couple of months' time. And I tell you what, I said yes to that, thinking this is going to be fantastic. And then all of a sudden I've gone, I've never stood and talked in front of that many people.
But at least you say yes.
But I said yes. So you know, the risk taker is there. It's like, oh, but I actually said yes before I even thought about what it meant.
I love that. I love that. Say yes and work out how. That's one of the mantra for myself as well.
Absolutely. So I said yes and then went, oh my God, what have I just done? I can do this. I can do it. Go on.
Oh,
no, we'll do it.
Fantastic.
So yeah, you know, and what I've learned about me and the skills that I've learned on the way of how to deal things, that's what I love doing now, is helping other people find out who they are, what's happened, and how you get over the crap that happens in your life. Because everyone has a black bucket sitting behind them with something in it.
Yep.
You know, everyone has that. And you've got to learn how to deal with that bucket. You know, do you carry it along like a ball and chain? Or do you say that's just my shadow and it's, you know, it's part of me? Or is it the ball and chain?
Wow, that's amazing.
I don't know if I answered your question then, but I certainly rattled on.
I love that. I love that you are actually sharing actually a little bit about yourself and a background stories of what you've been through as well. I know that it has been like yeah, you did mention that you only probably have the awareness of what is asking yourself the question, what was my passion and who am I really is at the age of 50. And how many years ago do you mind to say that, Lorene?
Oh, I'm 62 now. So
oh wow.
Yeah, it was
so it is
just before my 50th birthday, and it was like everything just crashed down. So it's actually one of the most important things you can actually get is not actually the lessons and the learning, it's actually the realization to look at. Do you know, it's the awareness. You said that word, awareness.
Yes.
Seeing and being aware is the first step in anything in life. If you can't see it, you can never change it.
That's right. And I love that actually, even though you did say that you only have that realization or the awareness at the age of 50, but I think it's kind of the hero's journey that everyone needs to go through. And it's only probably sooner or later. And I think even though you have only that realization at the age of 50, and look at where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny, when I first went into personal development, I was actually in my early 20s when I first had my first experience.
Uh-huh.
I remember going along to a seminar, and, you know, we're talking early 80s here. So
Yeah.
it was very new.
Uh-huh.
And I remember coming to the realization that I hated myself. I hated me. And I remember sitting in the corner just crying.
Mm-mm.
But in the early 80s, no one had the understanding or the tools
Mm-mm.
to deal with that. So what I did was I buried it.
Wow.
So I got
So,
the awareness, but then
mm-mm.
buried it because I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to deal with it.
Wow. So you mentioned about early 20, you was having the opportunities to tap into a little bit of personal development. And I'm just curious, what was the personal development like at that age? Because for myself, I only known about personal development when I was in my 30s, which is sometime maybe 10 years ago, maybe less than 10 years ago. And yeah, how was it the personal development like during that time?
It was it was basic, but there wasn't the tools. You know, I don't think I'd never heard of NLP at the time. I'd never heard of all the different modalities that are around now that people can use to get through things. So there wasn't the answers. It was the awareness, the awakening was coming, but there wasn't the how do you get through this?
So
You know,
how did you get involved in that at the time?
I can't remember, to be honest. I really can't.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was fascinating. Personal development is actually a big thing, which I think still a lot of people wasn't aware of that at even though during in this age of time. But then yeah, you tap into that at 20s, but you actually suppressed that and you didn't really.
Yeah. No, yes. And in my 30s, I first read the Celestine prophecies. And that was like, oh my goodness, wow, wow, wow. And then in my 40s, I had a business coach because I had a business.
Okay.
And she told me, and we lived in country Victoria at that stage, she told me whatever I did, not to leave, but I had to go and do the landmark forum. I'd never heard a landmark. And I said, what is it? And she said, don't worry about it. Just promise me you'll do it, but don't leave. And I, what am I doing? And I really didn't get it. And she said, just whatever you do, please go and do this. You need to do this because you've got issues with your mother. And she's a business coach. And I went, oh, she said, your business will never change unless you deal with your mother. Okay. But whatever you do, go and do it. They'll offer you money back. Don't take it. Sit there and do it. She said, I don't care if you don't do anything. Sit there for the weekend. Do the landmark forum. I was like, okay. So I went and I sat in the chair and they said, now, if anyone wants their money back, you know, you can go to the back of the room and get it. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't know. I don't know what I want to do.
Wow.
I did landmark. I did a lot of landmark. I did a lot of their courses and that. And landmark sort of opened my eyes and took me back to my journey in my 20s in a way. My eyes to the way I thought. It changed my brain. You know, it really did change my brain. And look, there's lots of parts of landmark I do not like, but there's lots of landmark that have some fantastic parts as well. That was my introduction back in. And then late 2008 or something or other, I did some other stuff, and then it sort of escalated from there.
Wow. Yeah, for the listener out there who are not sure what landmark is, for those of you out there, landmark probably is one of the personal development company that help you for transformation. So what was
Yeah.
your experience and what was your before and after during that course that you did with Landmark?
Landmark taught me to get out of my own shoes and get into someone else's shoes. Taught me that my own perspective of what was happening in life is not the same perspective as it was for everybody else.
Yes.
And that was really, oh wow. So you're telling me that, you know, three people can be in the same room, we've all experienced the same thing, but you've noticed one thing, I've noticed something else, and somebody else has got a totally different experience to what you and I've got.
Yes.
And who's right and who's wrong?
Yes, that's actually so true, because the map is not the territory. It's the first line I learned when I was doing my coaching course as well. Yeah, what we see is probably different than what everyone else are experiencing.
Yes. Yeah. And that was probably the biggest thing that Landmark taught me. That was my biggest takeaway. Yeah.
Wow. And with that courses that you did there, and you had a great better relationship with your mom, or
Probably not. It probably didn't alter the relationship between me and her, because I can't alter her. All I can do is change me. But it made me accept her for who she was and see her in a different light. Because you cannot alter someone else.
Yeah, definitely.
All you can do is change yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. You can only change yourself. And there is a line which is actually a translation from Mandarin. If you change others, you are crazy. If you change yourself, you can be anything.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's what it gave me, acceptance of mum. Wow. You know, so that took me from being the victim of my mother to being the acceptance of my mother. Yeah. Now, for Mother's Day, I put a post up because I was looking at all these posts. You know, I really miss my mum. You know, my mum was the best, blah, blah, blah. I can't say that about my mum. And I never miss my mother. Do I think about her? Yeah, I do. I think about her all the time. But do I miss her? No, not at all. You know, very rarely do I think, you know, I wish mum was around. I'd love to tell mum that. But the acceptance is that, you know, I love my mother. I love her to death. I really do love her. But I don't particularly like her. She wasn't a really nice lady.
Wow.
You know? And if she could step out of herself and see the way I feel about her, I think she'd be horrified. Because she wanted to be liked by everyone. And that's why she was so difficult, because she was trying so hard to be liked by people that she was pandering to the wrong people. And the people that mattered, she didn't give the right, you know, she didn't feed the right food to, basically.
Yeah, but I think every human being are doing the best they can at the time, for themselves and for probably her children as well.
Her motivation was very different to what I felt her motivation should be. But it doesn't mean that I don't love her, and it doesn't mean that I don't accept her. But at the same time, I'm also not the victim of her anymore.
Yeah, that's the main thing, and that's the most important. And to get out of that victim mentality and seeing things in a different perspective, you gain all the power back to yourself. That's so true. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that story of yours, Lorene. And I did know that it's a little bit personal as well. And yes, it allowed a lot of people to understand that even though everyone, even though your mom, we have different perspective, but then once you realize that you love your mom, it's just that you have a different perspective, and you get yourself out of the victim mentality instead of having all the hatred towards her. I think it's going to suffering for both you and her as well.
Yeah, there is. I don't have any hatred towards her. But I could. You know, some of her behaviors were quite terrible in a way.
Yeah.
You know, she was emotionally manipulative,
Mm-hmm.
which was really hard to take. But when you understand it later, I'd actually like to meet her now. We'd have a very different conversation.
Yeah, that's true.
You
Yeah,
know, very different
it's
conversation.
good that you're on this journey of personal development and
Yeah.
personal realization. In that way, you don't continue that path or the generation
Yeah.
trauma to your next generation.
Yes. Yes. Because
Mm,
because a lot of our trauma is generational.
that's right.
You know, it comes back.
100%.
You know, my mother was a victim of the depression. You
Yeah,
know, she really suffered badly with the depression. And I think her mother suffered very much from World War One.
mm,
You know,
yeah, it's
and
kind of like,
she passed that down.
mm,
Her parents suffered from, oh, I think they were in the coal mines in the UK, and that was
mm-mm,
a very poor time. And they came out to Australia trying to make some money to feed themselves.
mm-mm,
But there was struggle there, and it was passed down one, two, three generations, you know, and there was probably struggle before that, which I don't
that's
even know
right.
about, that was passed down. And it does get passed down in our DNA.
Definitely, it's
Yeah.
I think it's more like it's not only DNA, but it's also like the behavior and the patterns
Yes,
that if you don't stop it from where you are, it's going to
yes,
pass out for your next
yes,
generation. But kudos to you, you take the step to stop this generation traumas. And yes,
yes,
well done, Lorene. And I really
yes.
think that it's a big thing for you and your children as well.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I know that you did mention that at your 50 years old, your life was turned upside down. Obviously, there will be a lot of challenges and probably some of the pain that you have been through. So how did you overcome that hurdles?
By learning who I was,
Mm-hmm.
by working on me. That's basically. And also opening my eyes up to understand what happened.
Mm-mm.
You know, why would a man leave me when I had given to him and asked nothing in return? While I had allowed him to treat me so badly, why
Mm-mm.
would he walk out on me when all I'd done is given? I needed to work out why he would even
Mm-hmm.
think about walking out. You know, what had I done wrong?
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest realizations was I realized that I had no boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So I allowed him to treat me badly. So I cannot blame him for treating me badly. I have to look at me for saying, oh, well. And I remember, you know, being sexually abused and laying there going, well, it doesn't matter. He doesn't treat anyone else this way. It's only me. It doesn't matter.
Mm-mm.
Well, guess what? It did matter.
Mm-mm.
You know, and I remember sitting in the car before the year before he left, my daughter came to me and said, Mum, do you realize that dad is abusing you? He is emotionally abusing you and you need to leave. Now, if it hadn't been my daughter, I would have told everyone to clear off and, you know, mind their own business. And it wasn't the case at all. But when she came to me, it was like I had to look at it.
How old was she at the time to have that conversation with you?
She was 26,
Okay.
about 26, 27, something like that. So, yes. So she came to me and said, yeah, she might have been, yeah, 26, 27. She
Mm-hmm.
came and said that. And I went, oh, so I had to look at it and go, well, am I going to leave? What am I going to do if I leave? Who's going to want me? Where am I going to live? How am I going to survive? I can't leave.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to do. I can't leave. So there was my decision. And I remember sitting in the driveway and I was listening to some Tony Robbins CDs. Someone had told me that there was Tony Robbins CDs in a local op shop,
Mm-hmm.
secondhand pawn shop for anyone else. And I'd gone and bought them. And I'd bought them and I paid $30 for CDs, which someone would have paid hundreds of dollars for,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a large collection. Well, my husband saw them and he said, where did you get the money for this? How did you buy? And I said, I bought them from the op shop. And he went, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to them in the car. And Tony Robbins said in this CD, if you cannot change anyone else, so if you're unhappy in your current situation and you cannot change yourself to become happy, it will never change, because you cannot change that other person. Now, at the time, I was sitting in the car listening to it, and I could see my husband in the garage cleaning up and around. And I remember sitting there with tears rolling down my cheek saying, I can't change him. He's always going to be this way. And I remember thinking, and this is always going to be my life,
Mm-hmm.
because I can't leave.
So what happened next?
So he left. He, which I didn't know, was out there scouring the earth to find someone else to run off with. He finally found a woman who'd take him, and he ran off.
Wow.
Leaving me on my own. So what do? I don't know how to survive. I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know who I am. And I had to find myself. And he demanded that I move out of the house, and the house gets sold. So there goes, I had children at home who were still dependent on us.
Mm-hmm.
My oldest daughter was at uni, and we promised that we would support her until she'd finished uni.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, what do I do? So we had to move out. And I didn't know what I was going to do. So in actual fact, what I did was, and I was also looking after my mother, who was very elderly
Mm-hmm.
and ill at the time. And I was going to move in with her. She had a fall and ended up in hospital. So then I was backwards and forwards to hospital every day. How can I work? How can I do anything? When I've got to go back and forward to hospital to be with mum every day? And then it became apparent that mum was going to die. So it was like, I just didn't know what to do. So I had a credit card that had I had a $50,000 limit on my credit card.
Mm-mm.
So I moved out of the house. Mum died. Her house had to get sold and moved up and broken up as well. I had to move out of my own house. I was suddenly homeless.
Uh-huh.
No career, no money. Didn't know what I wanted to do. So I had to use everything that I could to put my kids into places where they could live and pay for that.
Wow.
And it was like everything was just too much. So I actually jumped on a plane, and I spent 12 months actually traveling the world on my own on a credit card, because I had no money at the time. Everything went onto the credit card.
Wow.
So we had $50,000 to survive on and pay for anything. And I spent a year traveling the world.
Wow. So how about your kids? They're older, right, at the time?
Yes, they're older. So, I'd paid for them for their accommodation. So they were sorted.
Mm-mm.
Now, my self-worth at that time also believed, because I'd always been told, like, you're dumb, you're stupid. And I really felt that my children didn't need me anyhow, because I was pretty useless and they'd be better off without me anyhow. I believed the world would be better off without me.
Wow.
So I thought they would thrive because I wasn't there.
So what's the decision behind going for a travel?
Because I didn't have anywhere to live. So I thought, I'll just going to travel, and then I'll come back and everything will have settled. Because there was financial settlements going around everywhere. So until that all came through, I literally had nothing. So I used the credit card until all that settled. That all settled. And I came home and I had some money when I came home, but I still didn't have a job and I still didn't know who I was.
Uh-huh.
The biggest lessons that I learned was I thought I didn't matter to my children and I was totally worthless to everybody.
Uh-huh.
Suddenly came to the realization that I was actually the glue that held our whole family together.
Wow. So how did you
I
find that
didn't
aha
know that.
moment?
I didn't know that because the kids were sudden, there wasn't Zoom back in those days. We're talking about 2012, I think.
Mm-mm.
So there was Skype,
Yeah.
but you had to be at the right place to be able to Skype, and
Yeah.
you had to have good internet, and they had to be on a computer that they could accept my Skype.
Yes.
Very occasionally I would be talking to my children. So I tried to touch base, once a week, but it was probably more like once a month. And I suddenly found that my kids missed me. My kids needed me. And that's when I realized that I was the glue that held everything together.
Wow.
And I was important in other people's lives. And that was a huge awakening for me, a huge awakening.
Mm.
I'd often thought, if I died, the world would be better off without me. And I
Wow.
believed that. I honestly believed that. I had nothing to offer anybody.
And what did you do after that realization?
I didn't necessarily do anything, but it changed me.
Mm-hmm.
It changed me.
Wow. So how did you get into being a root cause therapist?
Look, I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I've had lots of businesses and done lots of things. And coaching just made sense because I want to help other people do what I do. When I found root cause therapy, I did a mental health first aid, and it was like, oh wow, and when you sort of add that to the NLP and hypnosis and meditation and all of that sort of stuff, all the self-discovery that I'd done, through self-awareness and stuff, it just all made sense. And then when I found root cause therapy, it was like, wow, this is really an answer that helps people delve down with it, and does it quickly.
Wow.
So it really gets you to understand what it is that is the root cause and what happened. Whereas I had to go through the steps one by one. I had to come to the realization this actually gets you there much faster. So working with people and watching the light bulbs go on with a session is the quickest, fastest way to recover and heal. To grow, because you're growing as you're making these realizations, because your brain is changing as you go, oh yeah, and everything's falling into place.
Wow. So you were saying that prior to ending the marriage, you had your own business?
Yes. I've always been in business for myself.
Mm.
Always been in business for myself. So yes, that's why I have business coaches, because I was
Okay. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's mean that you got the background and you have the experience and
Yes.
incorporating NLP or the root cause enable you to help other business owners out there. And I know that you have found Love Light Inspire community that bring all these things together.
Yes. Love Light Inspire initially started for women. The initial reason for that was during lockdown. And when I just started writing blogs, and with the girlfriend, we put it into a website. And it was blogs on all different topics to help you deal with business, with life, with family. Because as women, we are multi-talented. We have to deal with the health of the family. We have to deal with everything. So we have to have basic understandings on nutrition, on menopause, because that's what we're getting to, or perimenopause, because that's what we're coming up to. We also have to understand, raising teenagers. We have to understand everything. So we have to be the expert in every field to guide our families, to guide ourselves.
Wow. That's amazing. That's such amazing. Listen to what you just mentioned. Well, women have so much experience, even though the experience that probably people didn't realize that. Yeah, like you say, that's so true.
Yes.
If you have to dealing with teenagers, you have to learn about how to deal with teenagers.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so true. multi-talented, which
Yep.
wasn't really get paid for or something
No,
like that.
no. So if you're in your 40s, you've probably got teenage girls who are just hitting puberty, going through that. You're going through that, but you're at perimenopause stage. Your body and your hormones are changing.
Yeah.
And everyone, and you have to be able to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything,
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
Teenagers want to eat Dim Sims for dinner every night, and you're saying, no, we need green vegetables.
Oh, that's so true. You have been so spot on there. Yes, it's so many things that a woman have to deal with.
Yeah.
A woman have to deal with, and without probably, not many people will understand in actual
No,
fact.
no. Now my girls are older. I have grandchildren. So I
Mm-mm.
need to now be at the stage where I hold their hand while they guide their children. So that's the next stage along in life.
Yes, that's so amazing. You did so many amazing things, not only for your own children, but for lots of women out there. And yes, I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Look, I think wisdom comes, the older you get, the more wisdom you get.
Mm.
The more, maybe it's more introspective. So some people get their wisdom early and it grows even more. Me, it took me until I was 50 before I could see my wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Probably 55 before I really saw my wisdom.
Mm. Yes,
And yeah, and we need
I
to share it.
know.
We need to share it because if we don't share it with others, then they can't learn. If you can learn through one thing that I've said, one aha, it's like, oh, okay. Maybe I need to look at the way that they're thinking. Yeah.
So true. Yeah. And it's so glad that you're sharing with people out there. Like you say, people might need that one piece of information of one piece of advice, and they will
Yep.
see things in a whole new perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said
Yep.
earlier, personal development and personal growth is something that not everyone know about it. And it's
No,
so important because maybe they might only know it in their later stage, but then still it helped them in somewhere as well.
it was really interesting. I was sitting down watching a movie, and it was during that movie that I saw this woman being treated bad by this husband.
Mm-mm.
And I remember sitting there going, he's actually raping her. And this is terrible. This is disgusting. And I had a real reaction, a real trigger. And then the light globe went on. That's what happened to me in my marriage. That was not acceptable. Oh my God. I was actually raped, even though, I never said no, because if I said no, then it was always, I had to be disciplined and punished for being bad. So why would you say no if you're going to be punished? You
Wow.
allow it all to happen. But it didn't occur to me that that was not acceptable until I watched a movie, for goodness sake.
Wow. That's
So, sometimes the lessons come in very different ways. And sometimes when you're triggered and that light globe goes off, you have to stop and say, why am I triggered? Why is that person's behavior triggering me that I'm upset about it? Because that person's behavior has got nothing to do with me. That's got to do with them. But why am I upset about it? What is it triggering in me that is causing me to react this way?
Wow, that's such I think it's a topic not necessary in like the intimate relationship, the whole relationship as a whole.
Everything.
For relationship, they didn't realize that something that happens behind the doors is not right, something that can happen in a better way. But then you mentioned about it, and it's a good way that make people to realize as well. So Lorene, what is your advice for any couples out there? What are the things that they can look out for in order for them to have the awareness?
It's actually the triggers, any trigger. So if you speak to me badly and I go, I don't, and I react to it, then I have to look at why I'm reacting. Because one thing that I realized, when I'm tired, I get grumpy. So if you come past me and I'm tired, I'm likely to be grumpy to you. But it's got nothing to do with you. It's got to do with that I'm tired. So if you take it on personally, what is it in you that you've taken it on? The triggers that we get in life are our greatest gifts. So if somebody says something and you have a reaction, what is it in you that you're having this reaction for or from? What is it?
Wow.
A husband, a wife, you know? So if he's grumpy, you say, okay, what is it? And also get out of your own shoes, get into his shoes. And why is he so grumpy? Why is he yelling at me because the dog didn't get fed? Who cares if the dog didn't get fed? I'll go and feed the dog now. He's tired. Okay, he's not well. Right. That's why he's grumpy. It's got nothing to do with me that I didn't feed the dog. I'm going to go and feed the dog now. It's actually get out of your own shoes, get into his shoes, and notice the triggers that actually light you up. So that's two things. There's two things. One, get out of your own shoes, get into theirs, and secondly, notice every trigger that happens in life. If you can do those two things, everything will change for you.
Wow, that's a big one. The triggers. Probably people didn't even ask that question. What is this triggers about? Because they just happen so instantaneously sometimes, and it's become autopilot. People didn't really pause and ask that question. Why am I triggered? And that's a good one, Lorene. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Because if you're triggered, sometimes if you don't realize that this is the trigger and stop, you just fire back at them. Well, why didn't you feed the dog then? Well, you should have fed the dog. Well, you should have fed the dog, and it goes backwards and forwards, and you start to fight because he is tired. And you're triggered because he's grumped at you.
That's right.
But he's not grumpy at you. He's grumpy at life because he's tired.
Wow, that's amazing how our brain is working as well, because once you are able to seeing things at a higher level and really see you and maybe your partners from a different perspective, like you say, you then understand that his trigger probably was tired, but like you say, it wasn't about that. That's how the argument started, and where it's all suppressed at the end is get explode.
So that's what we do with root cause therapy. We actually use the timeline, go down, and we go down to an event. So you've got two people fighting about feeding the dog. So you actually go down to that event and you hover above it and you look and you have a look at the two people and you say, why is he grumpy? So you actually see, why did mum yell at me when I was a child and tell me I was so stupid? And why did I cower in the corner? Always cower when somebody looks at me because I know they're going to tell me I'm stupid. Okay, well, let's go back to the root cause. The root cause was because mum used to say that to you. Get above mum. Oh, mum was scared that she didn't have enough food, so she was frightened. She had fear. And then you're asking a stupid question, but she was actually frustrated and it had nothing to do with you. So you actually look at that event and you go, oh, that event had nothing to do with me.
Wow.
So why was I cowering the corner? I was cowering the corner because I was scared of mum. But realistically, there was nothing to be scared of. So you can actually heal that event.
Amazing. Yeah.
So it is just so powerful. So powerful.
Yeah, I can see that it's so powerful to go back to that. And having that reconciliation with yourself and also with your others, either your parents or your other people that you needed to be healed. Wow. Love that. I really love what you were sharing, Lorene. I think it's going to help a lot of people to understand as well, to like seeing things in a different perspective, to be in others' shoes as well.
Yes.
Yeah, I think thank you so much for sharing with us about your stories, what you experienced, and also a little bit about root cause therapies. So I know that you have this Love Light Inspired community since COVID, like you just mentioned. So at the moment, what is next for you?
I probably want to spend more time working one-on-one with clients and helping them heal so they can move on forward, powerfully, and, totally transform their life because they see things differently. That's where I really want to move on.
Yeah, I'll totally see that a lot of your clients will benefit from what you are doing, Lorene.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And going back to your question earlier, you traveled for 12 months and then you come back. So after that 12 months travel, did you see yourself in a total different position? Is that where you change?
Yeah.
360?
Look, I learned that I was fine on my own. I didn't need a man in my life. So I learned that I had a spot on this earth. I had a reason to be here. I was important to other people. I learned that I was great on my own. I could be happy on my own, and I was very worthwhile. And I think that was the biggest takeaway. And I also had an understanding of this earth and how other people lived. And I came back with a greater understanding of how everything worked together, because up until that stage, all I could see was my own little backyard. I couldn't see anything beyond that. So looking at the earth and talking to people all around, because when I travel, I like traveling not first class. I had no money, but so I was staying in people's houses and looking at how they lived and what their values were and how their communities lived. And it was also strength too. The strength of some of the things I did, were phenomenal, which, I did some things that I never thought I was actually capable of. I did the Trans-Siberian rail line from St. Petersburg all the way through to Beijing.
Wow.
I was on a tour and there was no tour. And I was the only person on the train at one stage who spoke English. And I didn't know what happened when we pulled up at a station, whether to get off, get on. I had to learn how to, buy 2-minute noodles from the vendor.
Wow, that's such an amazing experience that you had there.
It was huge, that challenge on its own. I had a lady yelling at me in Russian because they put me in the top bunk. I couldn't climb up to the top bunk, so I slept on the floor of the train. And then she got really angry about that and started yelling at me.
Oh dear.
And it was like it was the challenges that I had to deal with personally were huge.
Yeah, and you did came over
came
it.
out.
Yeah,
I got through it. I went through Russia and China on my own, and Mongolia.
Wow.
Not speaking any of the languages. It was like amazing.
That's a big one. That's so big. And it's like probably you never thought that you are able to do it prior to this.
No. And the only time I really cried and broke down was I thought I'd lost my bus and I didn't know what to do. The crossing between China into Vietnam. Oh, that was on a bus. That was really hard. Yeah.
Wow. And you do it all by yourself.
And I did it all by myself with no help, no language, no nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, you're such an amazing person for doing that on your own. And it's like so gutsy to do that. It's not an easy one. And you did that.
Yeah. So I found that personal inner strength that I didn't know I had. Because if you told me that I could have done that on my own, if you told me that I was going on this tour on my own with nobody, no guided tour, no information. So I didn't even know where I was. It was
So you are that iron
In
woman.
the middle of
Iron.
winter too, in the middle of winter. So the train had to stop at times just to knock the snow off the wheels so it could keep going on the track. Like,
Oh,
this was beyond
have you
everything.
got some pictures during your travels?
I have.
Yeah, maybe we can share some pictures of yours being through that as well. That's amazing. You have been on an amazing journey. And I really, I have always said it in the conversation with this lady, you amazing ladies. Everything in life happening for you instead of to you. And without this experience or this life experience of yours, you wouldn't be going around traveling and saw this magnificent view.
No, no, no. I didn't think I was capable of doing half the things that I did.
Mm-hmm.
I had no choice. I had no choice. It was survival.
Mm.
And it was like, okay, well, I just need to keep going. I've got to meet the next, train to here because I'm doing this next, and off I go.
So
Mm,
true, so true. And it's that there is songs, the things that doesn't kill you make you stronger.
mm,
And
mm.
you are such a strong woman now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Love that story of yours, Lorene. Thank you so much for sharing. And you have so many to offer to all your clients and all the listeners out there as well. So tell me, where are the listeners can find you online?
Okay. Well, I do have a podcast, so if you want to listen to me, and I interview other more mature women on various different topics. So we talk about everything from dry vaginas through to everything that you can think of, menopause, anything,
And what's the name of the podcast?
So wow,
Mhm.
WOW, Love Light Inspire the podcast.
Okay. Yeah, make sure you all search for Lorene's podcast on Love Light Inspire. Is that right?
Yes, the podcast.
Okay.
Yep,
So
yep.
aside from the podcast, I know that you have a YouTube channel as well.
Yes, yes, there's YouTube. It's everywhere. Everywhere you can
Mhm.
find. So yeah, up Apple Podcast, Spotify, everything that you can.
Yeah.
iHeartRadio. There's about a dozen different ones that
Mm,
you're on.
yeah.
Yes. So you can also find me through my own personal page. It's probably the best one if you want to connect with me, Lorene Roberts.
Mm-mm.
Probably can't spell Lorene, so it's Lorene because it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So you can
Yeah.
find me there as well.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
whoever who want to look for Lorene, make sure you note her name down and you are able to find her on social media's platform. And I really appreciate your time with us this morning, Lorene. You have been sharing
No.
so many golden nuggets.
Oh, look, if somebody can take one golden nugget away,
Mm-mm.
it'll be wonderful.
Mm,
We all hear a dozen things, but only one thing might go in. And if
mm.
you've got one thing out of what I've said, fantastic.
So good. Thank you so much
Mm.
for that. And one last question that it's not actually last question. I got another one, but this question is if you are able to go back to your 18 years old self, what
I
are you
wouldn't.
going to
I
tell yourself?
wouldn't. I wouldn't, because then I wouldn't be who I am today. I love who I am today.
Mm,
It has been the life experiences along the way that have made me who I am today.
wow, that's so powerful, and I love that.
Go back. Would never go back. I'm getting better and better and better.
Yes, I
So
love
yeah,
that.
I couldn't give you the wisdom. My life would be so different, it wouldn't be funny. Yeah.
Yeah, so true. And I really love that answer of your Lorraine. And one last one. If you could give one piece of advice to all the women out there, what would that be?
Oh, the first thing that came to mind is be true to yourself.
True to yourself.
Be honest with yourself.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's definitely is one that is a bit of challenge to many people out there.
Yeah.
And
Because
yeah,
do you know what? None of us, do you lie, Vivian? Do you lie? You'd
we
say, no, no, I don't lie.
of
But
course
you
we lie
do.
sometime,
You
right?
lie to yourself.
That's right. Yes, that's
You
so
lie to
true.
yourself.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's the thing that we always wanted to that's the thing. Yeah, that's definitely is something that people should strive to become someone who is true to themselves. And it's so important to really live our life that is true to ourselves. But then we know that, as you know, you as a coach, we know that we understand where was that come from, right?
Yeah.
To live a life that is lying to ourselves. And I know that a lot of people are doing that out there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's something that is very challenging to do, but it's always have to remind ourselves, living the life to be true to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that line,
Yeah.
true to yourself.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
thank you so much
Be
for
true
that.
to yourself, because often, and it comes back to when we're triggered.
Yes.
If you trigger me, I will make it about you thinking something about me when it's not. And what it is my own insecurity that you don't like me. So it's actually, the truth is, I'm the one who doesn't like me.
Mm-hmm.
You're having a bad day, but I've made you not like me.
Mm-mm.
So we're not being true to ourselves about how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah, so true. It
Mm.
is, it is, I think it's very blessed that you are in this personal development journey, and I'm blessed that I'm on this journey as well, because prior to this personal
Yes.
development journey, I definitely has been living a life that is for others. Every words that I say, every step that I do is have to be thinking, oh, whether he liked me or not, whether she liked me or not. But ever since I was on this personal development journey, I have the realization that I can be myself. And I don't need to please others.
Mm.
And yes, we are blessed that we are on this journey, Lorene.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. And we're only students of this journey. We grow and get better and better and better as we go on. Look, I remember, well, probably 7 years ago, thinking that I've just about had it all. I thought I knew everything. Well, I know nothing. And the more you learn, the more you know you don't know.
That's right. Yes, I can totally agree with that.
Yeah. You're learning, is on a crescendo, and you're going up and up and up, and you think, I've got it all, I've got it all. And all of a sudden you realize that the further up you go, the more you go, oh my goodness, I know nothing. I just know nothing.
Oh, that's 100%. Yes. Well, I love our conversation today, Lorene. Thank you so much for so much wisdom that you just share. And I literally feel goosebumps listening to what you share, Lorene. I love that.
Oh, good. Thank you,
Thank
Vivian.
you.
And thank you so much for having me. And thank you for just sharing, my knowledge with, look, the more people that hear it, maybe something will resonate and will make a difference in their life.
Yes, yes, your story is very inspiring, and I truly believe if one person hear your story, even though one person at a time, it will change their life. Totally, I would say.
Yeah. If they can just get out of their own shoes, get in someone else's shoes, and look at life from a different perspective, it triggers you.
Yeah.
And be true to and honest to themselves. So there's 3 things there.
Yes, yes, I love that summary, the summary that you just shared. Thank you so much for your time, Lorene. So yeah, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like me to ask but I didn't ask?
I don't think so. Well, there's probably lots of things I could talk about.
Yes, you have so much to give. I really can feel that you have a lot that you can share. But because of the time, we have the time limit, or else we can talk forever, I would say.
I think we probably could, actually, Vivian. I think we probably could.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much again for your time, Lorene. And hopefully next time we can have you here again to share your wisdom.
I'd love to come back. I'd love to come back.
Thank you.
The more people that get to hear, just one little nugget could change the world.
I totally believe that. Yeah. Thank
One
you again, Lorene.
Thank you, Vivian.
Yeah, see you next time. Thank you for your time. Bye for now.
Bye.